The refugee camp on Kepler 442b stretched across the red dust plains like a scar. Thousands of makeshift shelters dotted the landscape, housing the displaced remnants of a dozen species who'd fled the Vorix expansion. Among them, in a weather-beaten tent that leaked during the acidic rains, lived Zilera and her 3 children. Maggie Chen wiped the sweat from her brow as she distributed food rations. The human aid worker had been on Kepler 442b for 6 months now, and the sight of suffering still hadn't lost its ability to wound her. She moved methodically through the rows, her tablet tracking each delivery, each family's needs. That's when she saw them. Zilera, a Threnodai female with iridescent scales that had dulled from malnutrition, sat outside her tent, trying to patch a new hole in the fabric. Her 3 children huddled behind her, 2 young ones with wide, golden eyes, and an adolescent who kept watch with the wary posture of someone who'd seen too much too soon. Food ration, Maggie said in broken galactic standard. Offering the sealed package, Zilera's head tendrils quivered in what Maggie had learned was gratitude. Thank you, she managed in heavily accented English. Many refugees were trying to learn human languages now. Earth species had become synonymous with aid in the aftermath of the Vorix War. Maggie noticed the children shivering despite the afternoon heat. Nights on Kepler 442b dropped to near freezing. That tent wouldn't protect them. How long have you been here? Maggie asked. 7 months, Zilera replied, her voice carrying the melodic quality of her species. Since Threnodai fell. 7 months. In a tent. Maggie's jaw tightened. She checked her tablet, scrolling through housing assignments. The prefab shelters were full, with a waiting list that stretched for months. The Galactic Relief Council moved with bureaucratic slowness, each decision requiring approval from a dozen member species. Humans, however, had a reputation for moving faster. Ephraim Okonkwo looked up from the solar panel array he was installing when Maggie burst into the human compound. Her expression told him everything. Don't say it, he warned, but he was already smiling. Ephraim had worked with Maggie long enough to recognize that particular fire in her eyes. There's a Threnodai mother with 3 kids in Sector 7, Maggie said, pulling up images on her tablet. 7 months in a tent. 7 months, Ephraim. The youngest can't be more than 3 in human years. Ephraim studied the photos, his expression softening. He was a structural engineer, part of Earth's emergency response team. He'd built bridges on Europa, emergency shelters on Mars, and had been constructing the permanent housing complex here for the past 4 months. The waiting list, he began. Screw the waiting list, Maggie cut him off. We have Unit 47 finished, don't we? It passed inspection yesterday. It's allocated for a Corthan family. They've been waiting 9 months. Then we bump them to Unit 48 when it's done next week. 1 week, Ephraim. I'm asking you to move up the timeline by 1 week. Ephraim ran a hand over his face. The Galactic Relief Council had strict protocols. First come, first served. No exceptions, no favoritism. It was meant to be fair, but Ephraim had grown up in Lagos during the flooding years. He'd been that kid in a tent once, watching his mother's hopeful expression fade a little more each day. Fair didn't keep children warm at night. Tonight, he asked. Maggie's face broke into a grin. Tonight. The sun was setting when they returned to Sector 7, casting long shadows across the camp. Zilera was inside her tent, singing a lullaby in her native tongue. The sound stopped when Maggie called out. Zilera, can you come out, please? The Threnodai mother emerged, confusion evident in the angle of her head tendrils. Behind her, 3 pairs of golden eyes peered out cautiously. We have something to show you, Maggie said, gesturing to the transport vehicle Ephraim had brought. Zilera's tendrils went rigid. In her experience, unexpected official visits meant bad news. Reduced rations, camp relocations, deportation orders. It's good news, Ephraim added quickly, noting her fear. Please, trust us. The drive to the permanent housing sector took 15 minutes. Zilera sat in tense silence, her children pressed against her. They passed rows of completed units, sturdy prefabricated structures with real walls, real roofs, temperature control, and sanitation. Ephraim stopped in front of Unit 47. This is yours, he said simply. Zilera stared at him, then at Maggie, her translator device struggling to process the words. Mine? But the list. We are number 847. Bureaucratic error, Maggie said with a straight face. Happens all the time. Humans are terrible at paperwork. Ephraim suppressed a smile and opened the door. The interior was modest but clean. 3 sleeping chambers, a common area, a kitchen unit, and a bathroom with running water. By galactic refugee standards, it was a palace that Zilera took one step inside and stopped. Her legs seemed to fail her, and she sank to the floor, a keening sound emerging from deep in her chest. Her children rushed to her, alarmed, but Maggie recognized the sound from her cultural training. Zilera was weeping. The eldest child looked at Maggie with those enormous golden eyes. Is real? The young Threnodai asked in halting English. Not mistake. It's real, Maggie confirmed, kneeling down. Tonight, you sleep under a roof. Tomorrow night, too. And every night after that. Zilera's tendrils wrapped around Maggie's arm, the Threnodai equivalent of an embrace. Why? She managed through her tears. Why humans help? We nothing to you. Ephraim crouched beside them, his voice gentle. Because someone should have helped us once, when we needed it. Because we remember what it's like. Because. He paused, searching for the right words. Because we're all just trying to survive out here. And maybe the only thing that matters is that when we can help, we do. That night, as Kepler 442b's twin moons rose over the refugee camp, Zilera and her children slept in real beds for the first time in 7 months. The youngest curled up with a stuffed toy that Maggie had quietly left on the pillow, a worn teddy bear from Earth, carried across light years because sometimes the smallest gestures mattered most. In Sector 7, an empty tent flapped in the wind, and somewhere in the human compound, Ephraim was already recalculating construction schedules, figuring out how to finish Unit 48 in 6 days instead of 7. Because that's what humans did. They found a way.